Hi there, it's Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures, and today we are visiting MousetrapCon 24 in this VC 101 video, helping startup founders not make mistakes when they exhibit at trade shows. So for the past 25 years, I've been involved with companies, either as CEO or as an investor, where the companies have exhibited at a physical trade show, everything from tabletops all the way to multi-story booths to visit customers. In this video, we are going to discuss some of the things that work and don't work so that you can get the most out of your in-person conference experience. Now, the first vendor we're going to stop by is Gula Tech Adventures. This is a tabletop. We've got a nice logo. We've got a monitor up there. And the person behind the table is standing up, looking attentive, and ready to answer questions. Now, right next door, we have VC Corp, where the same kind of booth, same kind of tabletop, but the person is slouched over in a chair, and there's actually food on the table, and he's on his cell phone. So these booths are basically identical, but the attitude and the demeanor of the people who are in the booth, in the tabletop in this case, are really making all the difference between how inviting and how much interaction you're going to get with somebody walking by at the conference. Now, this next booth we're going to stop at, there's three individuals there. They look also like they're ready to talk. But the point I like to make here is that if everybody at the booth was going to say something about the company and the product that they're there to sell, would they indeed say the same thing? A lot of startup founders don't take the time to help their team be on message and be consistent. Perhaps you're bringing a founder, somebody from marketing, somebody from sales, maybe even somebody from engineering. It's really important to get everybody as consistent as possible. And I see a lot of startup founders make the mistake of not trying to get everybody on the same message. Now, flipping around the corner across from that booth, we have the Pied Piper booth, where this company is doing some sort of sound repelling of mice and mouse. Now, it's a lot of technical jargon on this booth. And, maybe the booth is on message. If this was a medical conference for doctors, maybe we could use words like hypertension but if it was more for the general public, we should be using words like heart disease and blood pressure. But in this case, if somebody was just walking through this thing and not as familiar with the industry, they would have really no idea what these words are. Now, right next to that, we have a competitor who took a completely different angle on this. They just have the company's name and they have a speaker and there's a mouse kind of away. It's not as obvious what they do. Both of these booths fail from the point of view of somebody walking by. They are not going to know exactly what these companies do. And, a lot of people, you're going to go to a conference, they don't actually stop at your booth and engage. They just kind of walk by and it all blends together. So it's a hard thing to get right, but both of these booths are examples of failures in trying to communicate what they do. Now, as we fly over the rest of the conference here in the back, we've got this company that apparently has taken kittens and cats and merged them with some sort of cyborg technology, and these amazing visuals of cats, chasing mouse, robot cats, and whatnot. However, the booth is covered with all sorts of acronyms, and acronyms that probably people in this industry don't even know. Now, I'm in the cybersecurity industry, and when I go to trade shows like RSA and Black Hat, I will see vendors come up with new acronyms and new sort of words and lingo that it's almost like an inside joke. And if you're even on the slight outside of that joke, it can really be off-putting and confusing for what you're doing. So you always got to remember your audience. Now, again, maybe this is a super technical, MousetrapCon, and it's a technical audience, but I think the example here makes the point that, acronyms in the general public generally don't go together. Now, around the corner, we're visiting two other booths, and these are both examples of companies who have drones to do some sort of eradication or a movement away of mice. Well, this is an example of two competitors being right next door to each other. Now, hopefully your marketing people will be conscious of this and try to avoid this. Sometimes conferences like to put all the certain types of vendors in one spot. The important thing here is to keep in mind, you still have to be on message, who are you, what problem do you solve, how do you solve it? But you have to remember that your customers are going to leave your booth and go to your competitor's booth next door, or they might be arriving from there. So you're going to have to be on message for how do you compete with the people next door. You don't want everybody making up their own version of what that is. You want to have an official sort of capacity of how to say that. And you also, under no circumstances, I don't even think you even want to be seen in that booth. With today's social media, the ability to take photographs. Even if you're at a booth listening, being respectful, it might be taken out of context. I really would try to, be friendly, but be separate and be professional. Now, right next door to this drone competitors, we have Solar Patrol, which is a solar-powered Tesla coil that shocks and repels the mice in a humane and environmentally safe manner. And it's very easy to see what's going on here. You have a mouse being shocked, and you have two really, really big messages. It's humane, and it's also good for the environment. And this is a really good example of a booth that's on message. Somebody could stop and ask more, but even if somebody walked by, they're going to have a complete idea of what this company does without even talking to anybody. Now we move up a little bit further here and we go to the laser defense mice. We have a pretty decent example of a booth where, they're on point, right? There's lasers, they're shooting at mice. There's even little laser guns in the booth and whatnot. But the gentleman in the booth is leaning and on his cell phone. And again, does not look inviting, does not, he's facing forward, but is not exactly the most inviting thing. So body posture, attentiveness is very important if you want to engage people as they walk by. Now, across the aisle from them, we have Term Mouse. And I had a lot of fun creating these images and putting them in here. But this is a good example of another company that's on point, right? We walk by, everybody's familiar with the Terminator and the various Terminator 2000 movies and whatnot. But in this case, we're taking mice, terminating them, or making them Terminators, so they can go terminate the other mice. Now, there's guns in this booth. Maybe that's not the most sensitive thing you could have in a trade show, but the imagery and the name is enough that you're going to walk away from it. It's not as obvious if somebody just said term mouse, what they do, but there's enough going on here that it's a good example of marketing and imagery for people who are just walking by. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is crowd control. What you want to do when you have a booth is you want to actually have people form a crowd organically. Like the most coolest time I've ever had booths, where I've gotten the most leads and communicated with the most customers, is when I had a chance to do demos. And while I was demoing something to a customer, potential customer, somebody else did a shoulder surfing look. Somebody else looked, and before you knew it, you had like 5 or 10 people, if not more, doing that. Now, today in 2023, with bigger booths, we have theaters. We have the ability to schedule demos and schedule presentations from famous people, from developers, product managers, and whatnot. And this is great. It's not, to me, as great as the organic, holy cow, this company's doing something really neat, because it's a little bit more spoon-fed and prepared. But the more you can get the organic growth of people just stopping by our booth and engaging in large demos, the better off you are. Now, maybe you can only demo, you have a small screen, you can only demo to a few people at one time, but maybe your booth layout enables you to present to maybe 5, 10, even 12 or 13 at a time. Now, it's different. If you're doing this at RSA, there's a lot of space, there's a lot of noise. You're probably going to be presenting over 2 other booths that are next to you trying to present at the same time. But if it's a smaller conference and you can show that you have something interesting, you're probably going to get more value per person who walks by and participates in that demo. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed MousetrapCon 2024. And as we pull away and just kind of fly over everything here, I want you to kind of imagine just how most of these booths look alike. It's so hard to differentiate yourself when everybody else is trying to differentiate and capture the attention. No matter what conference you go to, you kind of have these problems. So keep this in mind when you're planning your booths, when you're planning your trade shows and planning on how to engage the conference attendees that are going there. If you enjoyed this video, please visit our YouTube channel, subscribe now. If you want to learn more about our portfolio companies that are at Gula Tech, you can visit us on the website and learn about each of them. And if you have ideas and things you want to hear about as far as raising money and starting companies and running startups, please hit me up at Ron Gula on LinkedIn. Have a great day. Thanks for watching this video.